that kind of sums up what we do. So what we'll do is just go through a brief introduction, and then we will specifically, I like to keep it as informal as possible, because there might be specific sections that are interested in medical response, as opposed to some people who are interested in disasters. So whatever is interesting to the floor, I will leave it up to you to tell me. I'll list a few trainings that we can actually provide, and whatever it is that interests you, we will take it up. Before we start out, I'd just like to focus on why we call ourselves survival instincts. We call ourselves survival instincts because in the urban living, we actually lack the instincts of survival. Because our ancestors migrated from the forests into these urban environments several generations ago, and as each generation passes by, the survival instinct is becoming lesser and lesser. So what we want to do is we want to sharpen the survival instincts. Now survival, something is usually something that is associated always with the wilderness. Like when you're in the wild, you need to survive. When you're in an island, you need to survive. But that's not true at all. As you can see today, we're facing a lot of survival issues. Basically from health emergencies. Anytime a person has a health emergency, somebody is lying on the road who is bleeding, and we don't know what to do, that's actually a survival situation. When you face crime, that is a survival situation. When you face natural calamities, for example, there was an earthquake that happened on April 2012. And that's the primary reason I started Survival Instincts. I actually run a software firm. So this disaster struck in April 15th of 2012. It was sometime in the afternoon, 3 o'clock. And I have a software company, and I was actually in my cabin. So as soon as the earthquake struck, I went underneath my table, which is the right approach that you take when you're in a built-up environment. And I waited till the tremors subsided, and I got out of the building, and there was not a single person in that building. Everybody had run out during the tremors, and they were standing on the street. And if you look at that street, you will know why you shouldn't stand there. There are two tall buildings standing next to each other, and they were standing right in between. And that's the way actually most people get killed. Tsunami in 2004 is a classic example. When the waters receded, water receding during a tsunami is nature's warning that a tsunami is coming. What did we do? We went and started collecting shells and fish. There are people who actually went to the beach to see the tsunami. So most of the times when these things happen, it's because of a lack of knowledge that we actually get killed more so than the natural calamities. For example, there are fires. You remember this Upahar cinema accident? Yeah. Majority of the people who died in that fire did not die out of smoke inhalation. They died in the stampede. So if they had actually followed a very calm approach of getting out, less people would have died. I'm not saying nobody would die, but the number of casualties would have been much, much lesser. So what we are trying to do is we are just trying to make people aware of these kind of things. That is from the basic civilian side. Of course, from the military side, of course, we train them on how to survive in the hostile environments, deserts, glaciers, mid-water, all those kind of things. We are always in survival situations whenever the safety or security of anything that we love or cherish is compromised. We are also under survival situations when necessities for us to live, for example, air. You're drowning, we are in a survival situation. If you don't have food, we are in a survival situation. You are in a survival situation in Chennai. If you're standing in the middle of the summer outside, you are actually in a survival situation. Heat stroke can happen. Same thing with food. Food emergencies can always constitute a survival situation. Now, when it talks to survival situations, we train in 4 of these areas. We teach you how to deal with health emergencies using medical response techniques, basic, advanced, and professional at this stage. Basic techniques is something that everybody should know, that I believe. Advanced techniques is, for example, if you're going into a more professional approach. For example, you're actually responsible for the safety managers, for example. They would need that. Professional means like you're going out into expeditions. You're going into 15-day expeditions. Now you are bitten by a snake on the 5th day. What do? You don't have access to the hospitals. So those 10 days of life support, administration, IV administration of antivenom, those kind of things are covered in the professional side of things. Crime, this is particularly focused towards women nowadays because as you can see, there's a lot of violent crimes that's happening against women. So we have a class for that. If that's something interesting to the lady specifically here, I will play a video afterwards to show you what we cover inside that. Natural calamities, we teach both rescue operations and relief operations. For civilians, usually relief operations. Relief operations is nothing but you are providing psychological comfort to the person. You're providing first aid to the person. You're providing food, water, what you shouldn't provide. For example, you hit your head and you have a brain injury. Doctors here? Sorry? I have seen very often somebody having TBI and they are showing symptoms of it, they'll be giving them water. Something that should be always avoided. Somebody is lying down and a possible C-spine injury is there. It's a cervical spine injury. What do? They carry the person by the neck to the hospital. And most of the times it's that carrying that actually kills them more than the actual accident itself. So those kind of things, so how to deal with the rescue side and the relief side of operations, of disaster operations. And of course, last one is generally not for civilians. We do train some civilians, but they're mostly people who go for expeditions, like mountain expeditions. So high altitude survival, desert survival, glaciers. So there are specific environments that you need to be more focused on. Now, what enables me to be here is I worked for the Army Corps of Engineers for almost 6 years now, and we were actually part of the disaster relief operation that kind of moves all the disaster relief supplies and the rescue operations in and around the CONUS. CONUS basically means the continental United States, which excludes Alaska and Hawaii, and of course the Caribbean side of things. I have also worked with the Wilderness Survival School, where we go through a training called SEER. SEER is something that even the Navy SEALs are required to train. Of course, they go through more training with weapons training and much more advanced training, but SEER training is basically survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. Survival is basically you are in an enemy territory, how to survive there, how to get the food, how to find water, those kind of things. Evasion is somebody is chasing you. You're in an enemy territory. You can't just light a fire. Although it's a part of your survival, you cannot light a fire. You have to light a fire in a way that fire is concealed. So there are specific ways to construct that fire. So you need the fire, but it should not reveal your position. Resistance comes into a place where if they capture you, they're going to torture you. And even if they torture you, nothing should come out of your mouth. And the last one is the evasion, the escape part of it. Escape part of it is you're housed in a maximum security prison. How do you get out of that? That kind of thing. So that's mostly what we train from a basic level. Of course, when you're in the same sealed positions, they will train you on more advanced evasion skills and things like that. My background is basically I'm an American Red Cross health and safety. By the way, I'm an IT fellow. That's basically my full-time job. That's what gets me the bread. But on a part-time basis, I'm also a health and safety instructor for the American Red Cross. I'm also a wilderness first responder. Wilderness first responder is basically search and rescue operations. I don't know, my friends from South Africa will probably know more of this because they have search and rescue teams as a part of the National Park Service, where if you have, say for example, somebody is lost during a safari, you have to locate them out. Same thing, emergency medical response is the people either flying in the chopper or in the hydrofoils to actually rescue you out when you have a medical emergency. So you're trapped inside, we provide you the support that you need. And of course, all these certifications are useless unless and until you actually put this to practice. And here are some few instances where we actually put into practice. The one on the lawn, that's the second photograph on the bottom row. That's actually the Haiti earthquakes in 2010. We had 2.5 lakh people die in Haiti. We were mobilized as a part of Doctors, Medicine Sans Frontiers. I'm sure you've heard of the name. Doctors Without Borders. We were actually supposed to be mobilized in 24 hours, but the US Navy was very careless. And this is something that I hate to say publicly, but they actually purposely delayed it for diplomatic reasons. And the 24 hours, they did not deploy us. 24 hours, when we started, it was a search and rescue operation. And they deployed only after 72 hours, which made it a search and recovery operation. So we were actually going there only to pick up the bodies. 3 days beneath the rubble, nobody's going to survive. There's a mine. People get into the mine and get stuck inside that. Mine is a very dangerous environment because you cannot take standard search and rescue equipment there. For example, every one of your descenders park. So if you take a standard descender and go inside the mine, it contains methane. And if it sparks, you are barbecued. What comes out will be you fried out. So the rescue techniques that you use inside mines is very different from the rescue techniques that you would use in a mountain, for example. So we are actually focused a lot on the mines because a lot of accidents happen in the mines. Those are cams that we use. If you see that middle picture on the third picture on the top row, that's actually a pilot who crash landed in a single engine plane. I don't know why people still use single engine planes, but nevertheless, the person crash landed, he sent out a GPS signal, and we were able to track him down, and he had a severe evisceration on his left side, and as you can see, everything spilled out actually. But nevertheless, he actually survived. Even after 8 hours of medevac, he actually survived, because he did not go into hypovolemic shocks or anything like that, because there's not a lot of blood loss, so which is a good thing. So that's basically my background. From there, I would like to move to tell you why survival instincts is a very, very important skill. An example that I use is this one. This is a story that I read as a child in Jadaga's Tales or Amritsatrakada. This Panditji is traveling across from one bank to the other in a boat. And Panditji decides to strike up a conversation with the boatman. And Panditji asks the boatman, "Hey, boatman, do you know any physics?" So boatman says, "Not really." So Panditji says, "You know what? Quarter of your life is wasted, man." And Panditji asks, "Do you know any mathematics?" So the ignorant boatman says, "No, not really. I don't know any mathematics." "Well, half of your life is wasted." So Panditji asks, "Hey, do you know any astronomy?" Boatman says, "No, I don't know any astronomy." So Panditji says, "Hey, you know what? 3/4 of your life is wasted, man." And then suddenly there's a whirlwind, and the boat starts to rock, and it's about to capsize. And the boatman asks Panditji, "Hey, Panditji, do you know any swimming?" And the Panditji says, "No." The boatman says, "Your full life is wasted." So basically, survival skills is always like that. We focus on Mexican cooking, we focus on learning Spanish. All those things are good, but they are only good if we can build up on our basic survival skills, which is to save someone when they are in trouble. For example, somebody who is drowning, what do we do about that? Your uncle is having a cardiac arrest. What do you do about that? What is it? Your child is choking on something. Do you know what to do about that? So those kind of things is what we focus on. With that said, I would actually defer to the table, to the floor here, and check if that's. I think with doctors here around, are you folks really interested in learning any part of first aid, or should we focus a little bit on heart attack? Okay, very good. Okay. Savera asked me before, what do we do when it comes to heart attacks? By the way, I'm sure the doctors here will be able to support this. We are the heart attack capital of the world. If there is something that we are defeating China on, it is on heart attacks. Most of us here will know at least one person who has had a history of heart disease. So one of the important facts when it comes to heart attack is, I'll focus on that a little bit later, but we always hear in our first aid program the golden hour. Has anybody heard the terminology golden hour? Yeah. The golden hour is only applicable provided the person is breathing. If the person is not breathing, the golden hour does not apply after that, because you only have now 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, what will happen is, see, the 0th minute the breathing stops to the 10th minute that the person is not breathing. There is irreversible brain damage after 10 minutes. So something bad is going to happen after 10 minutes, even if you're a sedated person. So that's the biggest problem with the golden hour principle, per se. And most of the times, we focus on carrying the patient to the hospital when that person is not breathing. You can't reach the hospital in 10 minutes. So by the time the person reaches over there, there's significant damage to his brain. And there's something else too. How we look at it is simple. Every minute that a person doesn't breathe, we say the survival of that person is compromised by 10%. So if that person is not breathing for 6 minutes, 60% his survival is compromised. That's how we think about it from an emergency medical response standpoint. Now, with that said, I'd like to move on to the cardiac chain of survival. What we do with cardiac. When we look at the cardiac chain of survival, this is a principle that is followed very closely by both American Red Cross and American Heart Association. You will see that there are 4 links in the cardiac chain of survival. Let us say you are having a heart attack. The first link in the chain is recognition. If you are able to recognize that you are having a heart attack, which is quite tough at times, you might actually confuse it with a lot of other things, indigestion, gas trouble, all those kind of things. And there are people who have had that for say about a day and then pass away. And they didn't know they were having a heart attack because what they thought is that it's indigestion or something they ate from a restaurant. So the first link in the chain is how to identify and recognize that you're having a cardiac problem. That's the first thing. And what the statistics say is that if you can recognize it, you have saved the person 5%. Now, once you recognize it, and this is very important in the case of ladies, I'm not a heart expert, I'm not a cardiologist, so I'm not able to tell you clearly how to recognize one, but most of the symptoms can be similar to the ones that is in the textbooks. For example, radiating pain in the left hand, but there are many cases where it doesn't really happen also. You have back pain. Your pain on the thigh, it has happened actually. It's documented cases where the person is having pain on the thigh, and the person was actually having a heart attack. That's also happened. So those kind of things go into the recognition, the first part of it. Now, once you have recognized the person is having a person is having a heart attack or a person is going into cardiac arrest, the next thing that you need to be trained on is CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. If you are able to perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation on the patient itself, that person's chance of surviving increases from 5% to 25%. Those statistics. Once CPR is complete, if you are able to give a person CPR, in addition to the CPR, if you also have defibrillation capabilities at home, of course you can't keep a defibrillator at home, you can keep an AED at home. If you have a history of heart attack, and you know somebody who has a history of heart attack, that's a good device to acquire, and it's not a very expensive device these days. It's about $1,000 for a good defibrillator. I think Hitachi and all the, I believe Siemens and all have it even cheaper than that. And if you look at pretty much the bus stands, police stations, any public places in the Western world, you will see a defibrillator there. India is the only place where you will find a defibrillator only in the most expensive and luxurious hotels. You will see it only in the hotels, most luxurious hotels. Nobody else carries it. Actually, as a matter of fact, today I was training with a company, a manufacturing facility. They have about 700 employees, and the last 6 months they had 3 casualties due to exposed electrical wires in Chengalpet. I just completed the training and come over here. And most of them, they still do not have a defibrillator in house. So what we were doing is, as a part of the corrective training, we were actually providing the training on how to use defibrillators actually. And the defibrillator that we usually carry around is defibrillator. Defibrillator is, it's not a complex device at all. It's an AED, automatic external defibrillator. You do not have to find out how many joules to apply. You do not have to find out what kind of thing to pass around and all those kind of things. This is the device that is provided to us from American Red Cross. It's from Philips. It costs about $1,000, and then I think the pad is around $200. We all own cars that are much more expensive than this. So this could actually save your life.
What does it do?
What it does is basically, your heart is stopped. This, of course, please feel free to correct me, sir. Your heart stops. I'm giving you the layman's explanation because, of course, I'm a layman. The heart stops because the electrical pulses inside is not working properly, and that's why the contractions does not happen correctly. What it happens is, it assesses the condition of your heart and passes current from one pad to the other in a way that your heart is restarted again. So it's like a stuttering engine. What you're doing is, you're actually providing the pulse for it to start back again. And that's the reason why this fellow is right here is called a heart starter. Now if you want a more technical explanation, of course, defer to the medical professionals. But this is basically what it does. What we do is, if a person is having a heart attack, what we do is, typically, we open this device, we pull open the pads. I'm sorry, I ran out of pads today because we were doing the training there. And we attach the pads over here. It's pretty much a foolproof device, because you don't have to press, there's only 2 buttons inside, you can't press the wrong button. The only thing that could go wrong with this is, you attach the pads to the person on both sides, and you're about to shock the person, and somebody else is touching that person. That's the only thing you really need to be careful with this device. So technically speaking, very little can go wrong with it if you have proper training. And there's some training that definitely, if you have a patient who has a history of heart diseases, definitely. Hotels, now luxury hotels are having ITC Grand Chola, we trained them on that. This fellows have it. ITC is actually, it's just something that came off the top of my mind. They're very concerned about the safety of the yes, yeah, the employees and the guests, as opposed to a lot of the other hotel chains. It's significantly different actually. So the moment we can actually defibrillate and restart the heart, it may restart, may not restart. It depends on the AED device itself, of course. And if you can defibrillate the person and restart the heart, the chance of survival of that person has now gone from 0 to 90%. And once you call the ambulance is able to respond to you, and they give whatever it is that they give as advanced care. Maybe it's nitro, maybe it's something else. Whatever it is that they give, now the chances has gone from 90 to 95%. And of course, the 5% aspect of it is that we are human. The rest of the 5% is up to God. So that's how they decide the cardiac chain. And this is the reason why we train people on both CPR, how to perform CPR, and also on how to use defibrillators. Now, defibrillator might be sitting in a place, but if you don't know how to use it, also it's a big problem.
What about another person? Somebody has to use it on the person who's having.
That's correct. You cannot use it on yourself.
Yeah. You can't use it on yourself.
Because see, most of the times you are incapacitated already. See, my point is, say for example, if I have my dad and my mom both have history of heart diseases, I pay more attention to my mom, because generally what they say is that women have silent heart attacks. Silent heart attacks, because the symptoms will be low, and so my focus will be more towards my mom. And of course, if I have both, my parents have history of heart attack, I definitely have one of these things, because you know what, I would rather buy a Maruti Omni and than an expensive car than one of this. It's as simple as that.
Anoop.